Hi, good morning. My name is Jackie Whitehead, and I'm the founder of Black Tech Alabama. Today, we're going to be talking about financial aid and the importance of filling out the FAFSA form. Before Manisha starts from Alabama Possible, I just want to say that I know that FAFSA has actually redone their forms. So if you did it last year, it's going to be different this year. And that's why I wanted to have a meeting on it to go over some of the changes. And also to say that even if you think your child would not get any financial aid, like my daughter, her father and I pay for most of her schooling. She goes to the University of Alabama, but we pay for most of her schooling. We still fill out the FAFSA form because you never know what monies you may be eligible for, even if you think you make too much. And a lot of scholarships, and we're heavy on scholarships, a lot of scholarships require that you fill out the FAFSA form. And finally, this year, last year too, actually, because of coronavirus, if you did not fill out the FAFSA form, then you would not have gotten any money from your schools if they received money from the government. So we're going to turn it over to Manisha now and let her start. Thank you again for agreeing to do this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me to do this. It is exciting for us because I know one of our main work that we do is FAFSA completion. So it is exciting. Let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great, great. So good morning again, everyone. I am Manisha Mishra, the program director at Alabama Possible. Alabama Possible is a nonprofit. Since 1993, we have been working towards breaking down barriers to prosperity through education, collaboration, and advocacy. Today, I'm excited to share with you our knowledge about the free application for federal student aid, otherwise known as FAFSA. FAFSA. So before we begin, I would like to thank our sponsors and partners over here. So I would like to thank Blue Cross and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama and Protective for believing in the work we do. And then I would also like to acknowledge our partners, Alabama State Department of Education, Alabama Commission on Higher Education, and Alabama Community College System for partnering with us in establishing a college-going culture in the state of Alabama. So we are on social media, so you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you have exciting news to post about your child regarding the college-going culture, whether he has been accepted by a college, whether he has made a choice, please use the hashtags mentioned here so we can share the good news too. And we always encourage our constituents to use national hashtags because you never know when somebody would pick up your post and repost them nationally. So that's why we love sharing good news. So one of our campaigns, like I mentioned, we try to break down barriers to prosperity through education, collaboration, and advocacy. So in the field of education, one of our campaigns is known as Alabama Goes to College campaign. So over here, what we do, first of all, it is a collaboration with the Alabama State Department of Education and is actively supported by Alabama Commission on Higher Education and Alabama Community College System. So this campaign seeks to increase the number of first-generation low-income students who pursue post-secondary education by assisting high school seniors with the college admissions process. Towards that end, we have created easily accessible resources and counselors can go on our website. We have a Google folder over there and they can see everything on there. And then even for students and parents, we have created a guide. So if you want to go to our website, which is alabamapossible.org, you will find an accessible guide for students and families too. So there are three components to this of this campaign. The first one is the Cash for College campaign, which seeks to increase the number of first generation and low income students who pursue post-secondary education by assisting high school seniors with the FAFSA completion process. And you'll see later on, I'll share some of the resources that you can access. So in order, if you need any kind of assistance. Then Alabama College Application Week is when colleges in and around Alabama, they waive application fees. It is interesting that we had not realized this 5-6 years back, that application fees also could be a barrier to that post-secondary education. So the campaign's goal is to increase the number of first generation and low-income students who pursue a post-secondary education by assisting high school seniors with the college admissions process and ensuring that each participating student submits at least one admissions application to colleges. So Alabama State Department of Education spearheads this campaign, and they are part of the national campaign known as American College Application Campaign. The third one is the College and Career Decision Day, where we celebrate students committing to pursue their education past high school. And it really does not matter where they go, whether they go to a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, or for a certificate or industry recognized credential, entering the military or pursuing a skilled trade. So it does not matter where they go. We just want to celebrate them and kind of not only celebrate them, but also kind of acknowledge the choices that they have made. So we celebrate them, and this year it'll be the College and Career Decision Day is going to be a week, and it's the first week of March. So each school is right now currently preparing towards that. So can you all still see my slide?
We can.
Okay. So the next thing I would like to talk is what are we going to be doing in today's presentation. So we learn what is FAFSA, why should students and their families complete it, and what are the different types of financial aid, what are the steps to complete the FAFSA and receive aid, how do you promote FAFSA completion, and where you can find resources for assistance. So first of all, FAFSA, fast facts. So FAFSA is otherwise known as a free application for federal student aid.
I'm sorry, Maisha, I can't see your
You cannot?
slides. No, I cannot.
Oh, hold on one second. Let me do it again. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now. Thanks.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I guess technology is awesome till it isn't. So anyway, so like I was mentioning, FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid. What it means is you can apply for it, go to that application, fill it out without having to pay anything. So the Pell Grant can be used FAFSA through completing your FAFSA, the application. If you are eligible, your student would receive a Pell Grant, and this is a grant that doesn't have to be paid back. And the Pell Grant can be used to pay for education after high school. And like I mentioned earlier, it does not have to be paid back. The next is most high school seniors in Alabama qualify for a Pell Grant. And then the maximum Pell Grant a student can receive, and it is this year, so it is $6,495. And usually every year it increases by $150, which really is nothing, but still at least there is an increase on there. So the average cost of tuition and fees per year at a 2-year college in Alabama is $4,770. So you can see how if your child is eligible if your student is eligible for FAFSA, they can go to a community college for free if they apply FAFSA. So another thing which research has shown us is that 92% of students who complete the FAFSA enroll in college the following fall. And I think it's really interesting to see this year because only 51% of those who do not complete FAFSA enroll in college. So that kind of gap, so it is always advisable to complete FAFSA. Now, another reason to complete FAFSA is this. millions are left on the table annually. So if you'll see 57.4% of high school graduates, they qualify for a Pell Grant. 47%, and this is in Alabama. So, and 47% of high school graduates who failed to complete the FAFSA last year. So this was, so if you see that 47% out of them, so in numbers, that is 23,915 students didn't complete their FAFSA, and 13,727 is the number who failed to complete the FAFSA, but who could probably have qualified for a Pell Grant. So this number is what leads to 60 million being left at the table. So it is interesting to see that people who could qualify do not apply for FAFSA. So again, what is FAFSA? It's a free application for federal student aid. And FAFSA, what happens is when a student completes the FAFSA, it helps schools determine the type of federal student aid students are eligible to receive based on the financial need. And the only place that you can officially complete FAFSA is FAFSA.gov, or using the My Student Aid app if they have a mobile, they can use it on there. But FAFSA.gov is the official way of completing your FAFSA. So if anybody comes and tells you, okay, you can go to this website, complete your FAFSA, you'll get money, do not do anywhere but FAFSA.gov or the app, as I had mentioned. So how FAFSA calculates aid? So how do we determine how much money FAFSA can provide? So FAFSA has this equation that they use. This is the cost of attendance minus estimated family contribution will give you the financial need. So cost of attendance, it's determined by the financial aid office of the college or university a student is applying to. Estimated family contribution is determined by FAFSA. And then the financial need also is that this is the need-based aid that is offered by the school. Now, why complete the FAFSA? Because students may be eligible for up to $6,495 per year in Pell Grants. And like I showed you, the community college, two-year colleges on an average cost $4,770. So that way they could, if they are interested in going to a two-year college and get an associate's degree, then they could possibly go for free. Then many scholarships require FAFSA completion. And I'm glad Ms. White had mentioned it at the beginning that, there are a lot of scholarships that colleges offer that you have to complete your FAFSA. And I'll tell you why. I have, I used to work at a four-year institution for a long time. And over there, I know our presidential scholars, anybody has to complete any kind of scholarship you get, you have to apply for FAFSA, because what happens is once you complete this application, it goes to the college and the college can determine, okay, if you're eligible for FAFSA, so free federal aid, which is a Pell Grant, then that is, suppose you get $5,000 from as Pell Grant. So what will happen, at least that college will not bear that burden of $5,000. And because Pell Grant, as I said, is free. So for the students, so the student doesn't have to pay anything and the college gets that 5,000 they can add on to give more scholarships. Then it shows college admissions officers that the student is serious about attending school. The next one, this was an interesting one, and this is 2019, so this is pre-COVID, which I'm sure the numbers must be more dismal this year. So if a student has a less than high school diploma, the unemployment rate is 5.4, and that goes down to 1.1. But interestingly, like even if they have some college, no degree, you see how the difference is a lot. From 5.4, it goes down to 3.3. Associate's degree, it goes down to 2.7. And this is the unemployment rate. And then if you look at the money that they could be earning, this is known as a median weekly earnings. So usually it is weekly on an average, this is what they will be earning. So if they have less than a high school diploma, 592 per week, which goes on with a high school diploma, 746, and then it keeps going up higher and higher. And this is how we are aiming to remove the barriers break down the barriers towards prosperity. So there are four main types of financial aid to help pay for college. The first one, either through grants, through scholarships, through work study, through loans. In fact, we tell students when they're applying for FAFSA to go ahead and apply for work study, because not everybody gets work study, but it's on a first come, first serve basis. So what happens is that work study, if you apply, you can always deny it later on. But at least if you apply, you know that you will have, and this work study is usually in college on campus, so it makes it easier for them to go if they don't have transportation. So again, there are more types of financial aid. Pell Grant, like I mentioned, is which it's actually this year it's 6,495, and they don't have to pay back that money. Then these are the different kinds of loans or financial aid for which you have to complete your FAFSA. Otherwise, you are not eligible to get any of this. So financial aid uses, what could a student use financial aid for? For tuition and fees, for books and supplies, and transportation and childcare expenses, room and board. So these are all the ways that you can use the Pell Grant that you get. So there are some thoughts from students and families. College isn't for me. I probably don't qualify. I'm going to get a sports scholarship. Now, the sports scholarship, if you get a sports scholarship, also you have to apply for FAFSA. If you do not apply for FAFSA, you do not get that sports scholarship from that college. So when am I going to have time to do this on top of classes and extracurricular activities? How am I going to get this information from my parents and guardians? Why is my child or school asking for my financial information? So these are some of the thoughts that are there among students and families. So we kind of created some messages for students and for families separately. So FAFSA is free to complete. One, you don't have to pay any money. FAFSA is for technical, professional certificates and academic degrees. So any kind of post-secondary education or education beyond high school, FAFSA covers that. Students may be eligible for up to 6,495 per year in Pell Grants. Many scholarships require FAFSA completion, early completion beginning. So FAFSA opens October 1st every year. So that is when students can apply for this. Now sometimes we encourage juniors to create the FSA ID, and I'll show you later on about the FSA IDs too. Then early completion, like I said, beginning October 1st is important. And this early completion is important for various reasons. One is the amount of FAFSA you get. Second is the work study that I mentioned. The earlier you apply, the easier it is for you to get a work study on campus. And then one has to be aware of scholarship and FAFSA priority deadlines at the college they're applying. Like, for example, Shelton State Community College, they had their deadlines on March 31st. So if you apply for FAFSA after March 31st, you will not be, if you're going to Shelton State, you will not be eligible to receive any kind of scholarships from them. Then for parents, FAFSA is safe and secure using FAFSA.gov. Like I mentioned, this is the only official website that you can apply FAFSA or the app. So please make sure you're not using any other websites. Only used to determine your student's eligibility for financial aid. So FAFSA, even if it takes your information, does nothing but determine your student's eligibility for financial aid. Your student needs your help getting key information from you to complete the application. The sooner you complete the form, the better chance you have of receiving various types of aid. And even if you think your family does not qualify, it's good to have on file in case of the unexpected, which we saw through COVID last year. There were so many unexpected cases. So reasons where families, the parents lost jobs and all that. So if you had your FAFSA completed, at least you have something to fall back on. FAFSA eligibility. So what are the student eligibility requirements, or who can apply for FAFSA? The student has to have a high school diploma, general education, GED certificate, be enrolled, accepted as a regular student in an eligible degree or certificate program, be registered with selective service. If male, must register between ages of 18 and 25, have a valid social security number, where there are some exceptions, and I'll show you the exceptions later on. Have satisfactory academic progress, signed certifying statements on FAFSA. So if a student is not a US citizen, what happens? Because there's a lot of fear that if you are not a US citizen, but you apply for FAFSA, you will have, there'll be repercussions. So the other documentations are like green card, arrival, departure record, battered immigrant status, VAWA, or T visa, or parent with T1 visa. Even if an immigrant student does not have one of these records, they may still complete the FAFSA as a record of family need. However, they'll not be eligible to receive federal aid. But the good thing over here is even if they complete, they may still get state or private aid. So what is a school eligibility? So suppose you're applying for a college, what is necessary for the college to have so FAFSA will be provided or Pell Grant will be provided? They must be accredited by the US Department of Education's Office on Post-Secondary Education. Then the type of aid available, it varies by institution. And the best thing is to call, once you have applied for FAFSA, is to directly call the institution to confirm. Because when you apply for FAFSA, the college is intimidated and the college is informed, and I'll show you how why we always encourage our students to name at least one college on the FAFSA, their first choice also, if they want to. Then FAFSA completion process. So the 2021-2022 FAFSA is used to apply for financial aid for fall semester 2021 through summer semester 2022. So here on out, or starting last October, students who want to go to college or university starting in 2021 fall through summer semester of 2022. So FAFSA, and this summer semester used to not be the case a few years back, and FAFSA has now started even providing aid for summer college. So as Ms. White had mentioned earlier, there have been some 2021-2022 FAFSA changes, and I'll go through those changes. Now this change is applicable till October 2021. So what happens come October 2021, there are more changes that are there, and we are looking at all the changes, meaning the FAFSA goes down from 108 questions to 38 questions. But that happens only for starting October 2021. So for this current one that we are applying now, what are the updates? First of all, the income threshold for an automatic zero expected family contribution has increased from $26,000 to $27,000, which is $1,000 difference. Then there are some updates like Schedule 1 question. The Schedule 1 question in both the parent financials and student financial sections of the FAFSA form has been revised. So the answer to the did you or your parent file a Schedule 1 with IRS Form 1040 can now be transferred by the IRS if the user utilizes the IRS DRT. So if you are doing online, you're paying your taxes online, then you'll be able to easily pull your IRS information. So it has become much more easier because you'll see now, so you get instant feedback. So the online FAFSA application gives you instant feedback. So over here, for example, students might receive error notifications that can be immediately addressed as they are applying for the FAFSA or as they're filling out the form. So over here, the student, you indicated that your parents will file taxes. If your parents have missed the 2017 tax filing deadline of April 2018, but still plan to file a 2017 income tax return with the IRS, click OK, otherwise change your answer. So it'll give you an instant feedback to where you can correct what you have done. So then many help topics on FAFSA.gov referencing financial forms now feature images of those forms with relevant line numbers. So you have everything, like you can instantly see what you are doing, which is the feedback is really instant, and it assists us as we are filling out the FAFSA. So filling your FAFSA, students can complete the FAFSA in several locations, one FAFSA.gov or through the app, as mentioned earlier. So what are the steps? So it is very important to gather documents, create FSA IDs. These are the different steps to completing FAFSA. Fill out the application, sign and submit, review student aid report, verification financial aid award letters. So step one, documents. So why do we encourage students to gather their documents beforehand? It is because it can save time and ensure accuracy if students' families have the necessary paperwork. So what is the document? What are the documents that are needed? Student's social security number or alien registration number, dates of birth for student and parents, guardians, social security number if student is dependent. And this is really important, the dependency status, and I'll go through the entire process on how, and give you all some examples, who is a dependent and who is not. So prior year tax returns, and I'll show you for 2021, 2022 FAFSA, you will need, 2020, 2021 FAFSA, you will need 2019 tax return. So that is an additional change where it is the prior year and not the prior year. Then records of untaxed income, benefits like Social Security, disability, SNAP, TANF, etc. And I'll show you all these too. Then information on cash, savings, and checking account balances, real estate assets, not including home. So creating a FSA ID. Now, this is very important, and it is important to create it beforehand, because what happens, FSA ID approval could take anywhere between 1 to 3 days. So it is essential that you complete your FSA ID. So go to fafsa.gov. That is how you complete. Both the student and one parent or guardian must have one, unless the student is independent under federal guidelines. So what happens is that the FSA ID is not only created by the student, but also one more is created by the parent or guardian, like mentioned over here, unless the student is independent. And I'll show you what all makes a student independent. Then serves as electronic signature when submitting the application. So this FSA ID. Now, one of the things that tips that we give all our parents and students is to use an email that you know that you access all the time. So instead of school or work, it is always preferable to use a personal email, which will not change. So make sure you use that. Then this is how you log into the FAFSA, and the student is I am a student, or if you're a parent, you put parent over here. Then student's username, email address, or mobile number over here, the student's FSA ID password. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we encourage juniors to create the FSA IDs during the junior year, only because what happens is they are ready come October 1st as a senior. Now, the only thing we tell them is to please keep your user ID and your password in a safe space where you can access it. And it's not an issue if you lose it, but what happens is, again, you have to go back in, forgot password, all that kind of things happen. So we would suggest that if you are creating an FSA ID, whether as a parent or a student, please make sure that you keep the user ID and password in a safe space, which you can easily access. Step 3 is the application. So FSA ID student information application was successfully saved. This is how the application looks. So I wanted to take some screenshots so you all can see how an application looks. Then next, student demographics, name entered must match the social security card. Please make sure the social security number, whatever name is there for the student, that should match. If student has driver's license, it is helpful to add for identity verification, but not required. And then, are you interested in being considered for work study? Like I mentioned earlier, it is always better to say yes in the forefront, and then later on, one can always deny it when one gets it. School selection must put at least one school. What happens is if you apply for your first choice of school, suppose somebody wants to go to UAB. So if the student applies for UAB and puts UAB as a selected school, what will happen is the student will be paired up with a financial aid officer. So the minute your FAFSA is complete, you do not have to do anything but call the college, the university, and they will connect you to your financial aid consultant or officer. So we encourage every student to put at least one local college or university in Alabama. Do not need to list a state school first for state aid eligibility. Can search. So even if they're going out of state, they can always put that name. So because you do not need to list a state school. Can search by school name, location, or code. Can add up to 10 schools on initial application after some. And this 10 schools, the good thing about this is if you're part of the college application week, Alabama College Application Week, you can apply to 10 schools that have waived off application fees during that week and apply for free. Then after submitting, can log in and add additional schools. So you can remove and add schools and colleges as you go. Then again, this is all student information and everything. So there are, if you do not know the code, you will get, so every school has a code. But if you do not know the code, you can always say no, and then you can go put your state over here, city if you want to, school name if you want to, but if you put state, all the state schools will be, whichever state you have put on there will be visible. Now, dependency status. This is the most important thing, because before you do anything, you have to first kind of verify the dependency status. So how do you select the dependency status? Can you all see this one, complex steps of the FAFSA? Okay, great. So dependency status, parent determination and special circumstances. What do we do? So dependency status, application walks student through a series of questions to determine if a dependent or independent student. Independent students do not require a parent or guardian to complete the FAFSA, but may require additional documentation to verify their independent status. And like I mentioned over here, this dependency questionnaire is there on the resources from FSA, and who's my parent flowchart is also there. So using FSA dependency questionnaire. So if student answers yes to any of the questions, they are considered independent and do not have to provide their parent or guardian's information. So there are several questions. If a student responds yes to any of those questions, he's independent. Now, if student answers no to all of the questions, they are considered dependent and do have to provide their parents, guardians info. So this is when a student becomes dependent, the parent or guardian has to have an FSA ID too. So we'll go through a few scenarios. The first one is Michaela was born June 15th, 2003. She has been in foster care since 2010. She's not married and does not have children. She wants to pursue her associate's degree next fall. Now, this is a kind of situation scenario which we can determine through the FSA, through the FAFSA.gov application process to see if Michaela is dependent or independent. So this is the form that she has to fill out to see whether she is dependent or independent again. So we have different questions. For one question over here, if you see, as of today, are you married? She said no. Were you born before January 1998? We can go back and see, and it's no. So she answered no to everything. Then she came over here. At any time since you turned age 13, were both your parents deceased? Were you in foster care, or were you a dependent or ward of the court? So over here you see Michaela, she has been in foster care, right? So we'll go back and see. So she has to mark this as yes. Now let's see how that happens. So what happens to Michaela's dependency status? So she becomes independent because she has been in foster care at some point since the age of 13. Michaela will not report the financial information of a parent or guardian on the FAFSA. So the only information she needs to report is her financial information. Now, scenario 2. Jalen was born October 2nd, 2002. He lives with his father, who's single. Jalen is not married and has no children. Is Jalen dependent or independent for the purposes of federal student aid? Let's go ahead and see what happens to that same form. So were you born before January 1st? No. Everything is no. Was he married? He wasn't married. At the beginning of the 2021-2022 school year, will you be working on a master's degree or doctoral degree? No, he's going for an undergrad degree. Then do you have dependents other than your children or spouse who live with you? No, because he lives with his dad. Are you currently serving on active duty? No. So he has basically marked no for everything. So Jalen is dependent because, as I had mentioned earlier, on that form, if you mark no for everything, you are dependent. But if you mark yes for even one question on there, you become independent. So Jalen is dependent. He will report the financial information. He has to report the financial information of his parent or guardian on the FAFSA. So whose financial info to report? So Jalen now has to give the financial information, right? So a student's dependency status helps determine whose financial info to report on the application. For independent students, you only report the student's financial information. For dependent students, report the student's financial information, if any, and a parent guardian's financial information. Now, dependent students will need to determine who their parent is for FAFSA purposes. And now we'll go on to, and again, this is available on the FSA, the FAFSA.gov website. So use the FSA Who's My Parent flowchart, and I'll show you what it looks like. So we'll go look at it through a scenario. So Manol, 18, lived with her mother and father until they divorced when she was 15. Neither parent has remarried. Since then, Mano has only lived with her grandmother, who provides most of her financial support. Other financial support comes from Mano's mother. Who is Mano's parent for the purposes of federal student aid? So over here, I want to clarify something. The grandmother, even though she provides most of her financial support, can never be a parent until and unless the grandmother has adopted Mano. So over here, we know for sure that her grandmother is not her parent. So she will not need to provide her grandmother's financial information. So whose should she provide? So the first question it asks, are your parents married to each other? If it's yes, report information for both parents. Now, in Mano's case, they are currently not married. So she goes on to here, do your parents live together? Yes, report information for both parents, even if they were never married or are divorced or are separated. Second, if it's no, which is what it is in Mano's case, did you live with one parent more than the other over the past 12 months? Now, this is a question for the past 12 months only. So Mano lived with who? She lived with her, let's go back and check. So she lived with her grandmother, right? So Mano's will be no. The answer will be no. But if she lived with one parent for more than the other over the past 12 months, so she has to report that parent. So if she had lived with her mother, but had only gone to see during her vacation or holidays to her dad, she still has to report her mother's financial information. So hers is no. So report information on FAFSA for the parent who provided more financial support over the past 12 months or in the last year you received support. So let's go back and check in Mano's case. So her mother is the one who provided financial support. So that is why over here, she has to report her mother's financial information. Now, suppose her mother had remarried, which in this case, she hasn't. So, but suppose what happens when the mother has remarried? If it's no, you do not need to report additional parent information. If it is yes, report information of your step parent also. So you see, this flowchart is very clear on who the parent is. And if you go step by step with all the information, you can always figure out whose financial information to provide. So Mano's mother, as we mentioned earlier, is considered Mano's parent for FAFSA purposes, since her mother provides more financial support than her father. And the grandmother has not legally adopted Mano. And that was the reason I said the grandmothers will only be used only if she legally adopts the grandchild. Otherwise, we will not need the financial information for the grandmother. So what if a student doesn't live with their parents? Or what if the student doesn't have contact with their parents? So if you're a dependent, you can submit the FAFSA without parent information in the following, only if the following applies. Your parents are incarcerated, you have left home due to an abusive family environment, you do not know where your parents are and are unable to contact them, and you have not been adopted. Because if the student was adopted, the person who adopted becomes the parent. And you are older than 21, but not yet 24. Now, this is another thing to note. Once the student is 24, the student is always independent. Doesn't matter who he or she lives with, what the situation is, the student is always independent, considered independent. You're older than 21, but not yet 24, are unaccompanied and are either homeless or self-supporting and at a risk of being homeless. So then you can submit FAFSA without parent information. If you're a dependent who did not submit parent information due to any of these special circumstances, what happens? Your application will not be fully processed because you have to submit some more paperwork. First of all, you need to immediately contact the financial aid office. Now, the financial aid office doesn't mean at the federal aid. It is a financial aid office in the college or university you have applied to. Gather required evidence and documentation of your situation. So this person will tell you, when you contact the financial aid office, they will tell you what kind of documentation you need to prove that you are dependent, yet all the others apply for you. So receive an estimated family contribution and financial aid package based on the determination of the school. So once the student gives all these documentation to the institution, then the institution will decide. So other circumstances, let's look at, was that the right? Yeah. Other circumstances, student has contact with parent, but parent refuses to provide the info. You may submit your FAFSA form without their information. However, you won't be able to get any federal student aid, which means Pell Grant, other than an unsubsidized loan, and even that might not happen. These kinds of decisions, usually, they depend on the school you plan to attend. They make that decision or determination. So student has parents who are undocumented. This is very important to see for undocumented students and don't have an SSN, Social Security number. So a parent's citizenship does not affect a student's eligibility for federal student aid. A lot of times we see students who do not apply apply for FAFSA because their parents are not citizens, but actually their parent status does not affect a student's eligibility. In fact, the FAFSA form doesn't even ask about the parent status. Enter all zeros for the parent's social security number on the FAFSA form, and then print and mail the signature page. So they do not have any electronic option if their parents are not citizens. So they have to print and mail the signature page, since the parent won't be able to create an FSA guide. Sorry, excuse me. Then student is undocumented or has been granted DACA. Unfortunately, undocumented students, including DACA students, are not eligible for federal student aid. However, they may be eligible for state or institutional financial aid in addition to private scholarships. DACA students with a social security number should inquire further to determine whether they should complete the FAFSA for types of aid that are not federal aid, and that they can determine from the school of their choice. Another one, a student is homeless or at risk of being homeless. Provide a homeless youth determination from one of the following people. Excuse me. So the high school or district homeless liaison can give them a documentation. The director of an emergency shelter or transitional housing program funded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or the director of a runaway or homeless youth basic center or transitional living program. So if the student is homeless, the student can get documentation from either of these, and that will be valid and make him an independent student. So okay, let me we've gone through these slides. I went through these over there. So like I mentioned, hold on, let me see. No. So like I mentioned, the benefit information. So any kind of Medicaid or supplemental security, supplemental security income, SSI, or supplemental nutrition assistance program, SNAP, all these informations have to be provided once a student is dependent. Free or reduced price lunch, school lunch, temporary assistance for needy families. So if you're on any of this, it has to be provided in FAFSA in the form. So what does the IRS data retrieval tool do? Now, one has to see that the IRS data retrieval tool is actually a great tool that one can use because you can get information online. So it allows you to securely and accurately transfer tax return information to the FAFSA. And the IRS data retrieval tool is used only for FAFSA. It cannot be used for anything. So there is a myth that sometimes the government takes that kind of information, but it is only used for data, FAFSA data. Must enter correct address information for return. If a family is unable to use, have tax return available. So if you have not done your taxes online, then make through the IRS data DRT, that's the IRS data retrieval tool, please make sure you have your tax return available. So ineligible students or parents who are married and filed as married, filing separately, are married. So these people are the ones who are ineligible. They will need to enter their tax return information manually. So like IRS DRT is very important, but people in this status, they are ineligible. So you have to use your physical, you have to manually enter that information. So again, over here, parent eligible for IRS DRT, this is what it looks like. So you'll have a link to your IRS. Once you have your social security number on there, you'll have a link to your IRS. Click on there and it self-populates. FAFSA now uses prior year tax. So like I mentioned, for this year's FAFSA, if you're filing, you need your 2019 taxes, not your 2020, but your 2019. Means families can complete FAFSA sooner. For the 2021-2022 FAFSA, which will open in, which has opened last year, families will use the 2019 tax return, which is filed in 2020. Sorry, this is for the 2021-2022. That means the one which will open in October 1st. So if there are any parents over here who whose children are juniors, then you will need 2020. But currently, when you're filling out the application, you'll need your 2019 tax return. So what is the tax information used for? Like I mentioned, the tax information will not be used for anything but determining the need-based aid the student is eligible to receive. So if you do not have that, then it becomes an issue. So sign and submit, like I mentioned, both the child and parent must sign using the FSA ID if submitting electronically. Application may be printed, signed, and emailed too. So you can sign it manually too. What happens next? Now, like I mentioned, it takes 3 to 5 days, business days for the Department of Education to process a FAFSA. Once they process a FAFSA, the student will receive their student aid report when the results are ready to review. So the student or the parent guardian has to review carefully and make any corrections if needed. So once those are done, the financial aid office will let the student know if additional information is needed. Again, this financial aid office is not the federal office, but the college financial aid office. Check email for SAR, that is the student aid report, or mail if did not provide an email. Takes 3 days to 3 weeks. So if you did not provide an email, it'll come in the postal USPS, and it'll take close to 3 weeks. Check for accuracy and make corrections at fafsa.gov. Check for the estimated family contribution. If you have any kind of issues with this, just let them know. And if EFC is missing, it means the FAFSA is incomplete. So what happens if EFC is missing means your tax returns are not there. So FAFSA will be incomplete. There might be a note that some information needs to be corrected or that you have been selected for verification. So the selection for verification is done randomly by the college or university. Important to read it carefully and take any required actions. So this is how it looks. The FAFSA after completion, process date, it'll give you application receipt date, it'll give you the process date, and it'll tell you how much the EFC is. So verification, sometimes students and parents get intimidated when they see verification. It is normal. We try to make this announcement as much as possible that verification is normal. There could be some minor errors and you could have been selected for verification. So it is very normal. So many students will be selected for verification, especially if could not use the IRS data retrieval tool. So this is one way of making sure that you're not in verification unless there are some mistakes. But if there are mistakes, the federal government itself won't process the FAFSA and they'll let you know what is missing. Does not mean that the student is in trouble. Verification process, it varies by each school. Like I mentioned earlier, it's the school who picks up the student for verification, not federal government. Important to respond quickly to requests for documentation to clarify information. Most families will need to order a free transcript. Then colleges' financial aid officers are here to help. So next, what will happen is each college will send, who accepts the student will send a financial aid award letter for the school the student wants to attend. They must accept or decline each type of aid. Generally, it's best to accept aid in the following order. First, you get free money, that is any kind of Pell Grant, scholarships, anything of that kind. Then earned money, which is work study. And last should be borrowed money, which is federal student loans. So you have to be very careful when you're reading the award letter because sometimes colleges do put this also. But if you do not want to take any loans, you can let them know and they can put you on a payment plan. Or if you can afford to pay for that extra money, you can pay too. So what are the common mistakes? Not using the correct website, not 100% completing the FAFSA. The FAFSA has to be completed from step 1 to the last step when it'll tell you FAFSA completed. Not completing the FAFSA as soon as it's available, inputting incorrect information, listing only one college or not adding additional schools, not using the IRS data retrieval tool, not reading definitions. So this IRS data retrieval tool, it could be a common mistake because you might, when you're entering it manually, you might miss a number here and there. Not reading definitions carefully, not signing the FAFSA, not submitting FAFSA within 45 days of starting it. So once you start, you have to complete your FAFSA 45 days of starting, within 45 days. Not filing by the deadline for the school or scholarship, waiting until after graduation is complete, graduation to complete the FAFSA. Now what happens, like it is okay to apply after you graduate, but the thing is that you will not have the support that you have while you are in high school. So that's why we encourage students to complete the FAFSA before they graduate. So there are some kind of COVID questions too, right? What happens to, we have taken a couple of questions that we have been asked, concerns. So we have kind of tried to frame some answers for that question. What if the financial situation of the student and the family changed significantly because of financial hardships or unemployment related to COVID? The student and the family will submit 2019 tax information, which might not reflect their current financial situation. The student should communicate this to the financial aid office at the school immediately after completing the FAFSA and before receiving an award offer. So the minute you get the notification or the student gets a notification that they have FAFSA has been processed, they immediately need to call the school before receiving the financial aid and let the school know what has happened before receiving the award offer. What if my student's financial aid award still doesn't reflect their financial need? So the student and parent or guardian might appeal directly to the college with documents. Colleges can use professional judgment to adjust the information on the FAFSA, which could impact their expected or estimated family contribution and grant eligibility. So the appeal templates are on Swift Student. So if you go click on Swift Student, you can find how you can appeal. So these are some of the student and family resources I've given over here. So you can go to fafsa.gov. There's a lot of information on there. Call Federal Student Aid at this number, call financial aid offices, call Alabama Possible. We provide assistance too directly. So you can call us or email us at algoestocollege@alabamapossible.org. So this is a help desk, the number which I had mentioned over here. So we have actually two, one peer transition advisor and one peer college transitions advisor, and we have our program and communications coordinator. They kind of answer these questions. So if you have any questions, they will answer. If they don't know the answer, they will find out the answer and call you back. So make sure that you reach out to us. Any questions? I saw there was some coming on chat, maybe. Let me see. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So if you have any questions, I would, if you don't have any questions, I want to share something with you all, which is exciting for us, because let me bring it back. Give me 1 second. So if any of you, any of your children haven't completed the FAFSA, can you all see the flyer now? Okay. So Alabama Possible is hosting a virtual family FAFSA night, and it is on April 19th, 20th, and 21st, which is next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 5, at 6, at 7, either of those 3 times. So what we are doing is, if you, we are encouraging everybody to come with the FSA IDs, because like I mentioned, FSA IDs will need 1 to 3 days to be processed. So if you come with your FSA ID and you need step-by-step help, we are doing one-on-one FAFSA completion during those nights. And I can send this to Ms. Whitehead, and she can send it to you all, so you can sign up online. Like from this flyer itself, you can sign up, and you have to sign up for one date and one time. So if you sign up for April 19th at 5, what will happen is you can go on there, and on Zoom, you and your student can go and you can be provided one-on-one step-by-step guide on one-on-one step-by-step guide of FAFSA completion. Okay, if there are no questions, I'm done.
Great. Thank you so much for doing this. And hopefully people will sign up for your workshop as well. I wanted to also show parents a website. Let's see. Can you see my screen? Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Great. So the federal government just recently came up with a website, and it is collegescorecard.ed.gov. And if your student is undecided about what college they want to attend, it actually has all the accredited colleges in the US. I pulled up Alabama, and you can see the graduation rate of each school. I think that's important, especially if you're talking about student loans, because you need to be able to pay for the student loans back, and you want your child to graduate. So I direct a lot of my clients over to this website if their kids are undecided. Just a good resource. Again, the website address is collegescorecard.ed.gov. So if you guys don't have any questions, I will send this PowerPoint out to you. I recorded the session, so I'll send it out to you, and you can go through and review it if you need to.
And thank you so much, Ms. Whitehead, for inviting me. I hope this has been helpful to the parents who have attended this. Thank you.
Yes, I think it has. Thank you so much for doing it.
Jaden had one question.
Oh, sorry, didn't see it. So his question is, while in high school, can you get financial aid?
So is he looking for financial aid for going to college, or is it for school?
College, I think.
Okay, so yeah, you can, if you are a junior or a senior, if you're a senior, you apply for, you complete the application, and it'll determine if you are eligible for any kind of grants, Pell Grant or any kind of grants. So you have to, you as a senior, junior or senior, if you're a junior, you create your FSA ID and get ready for the FAFSA to open the next October when you become a senior, but keep your FAFSA ID ready. And the sooner you apply, the sooner the possibility of getting more aid is high. And of course, all seniors can apply, and the eligibility is determined.
Any other questions? Thanks again. And again, I'll send this out later today. And thank you guys for logging in.
Thank you. Y'all have a great rest of the day. Bye.
You too. Bye.